past. It is. I want to say, because you are all here and to thank my brilliant constituent who does so much work to organise these events, to make sure that even in times where there is a huge amount on the political landscape, that Kashmir and the situation in Kashmir and the people of Kashmir are never forgotten. And it is difficult in a world as fast moving as ours, when something has been going on for 76 years, to have the strength and purpose and determination to keep that on the agenda. It would be wrong of me not to mention that at the moment, obviously, we are dealing with the occupation of Palestine in this building, and the hurt and pain of the Muslim community and not just the Muslim community, everybody. But I think it's worth expressing the hurt and pain felt certainly by lots of people in my constituency. Couldn't go without a mention as we meet here today. And you've got to hope that meetings and people talking to each other is the answer to things, because actually what we've all been left with in both these terrible situations, which I'm sure we all care very, very deeply about, is violence. And what that's left in both instances is 76 years of pain. And 76 years of pain, there's got to be a way of moving it on from violence and oppression, rape as a weapon of war, all of the things that we see. There's, I am ever grateful to the communities that want to sit and talk and use peace to try and sort this out. So thank you very much all for coming, and thank you for your continued resilience in what for some, I'm only 42 and I feel like I've been saying this for 76 years on this particular issue. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who must feel incredibly tired of feeling like we say the same thing over and over again. So thank you for your resilience, and thank you for keeping on. It's, without people like people in this room, it is undoubtedly that politicians like us, it would be easy for it to slip down the agenda, and it's thanks to people like you that means that people like us keep on trying. So thank you for your support and kindness and for your persistence. First of all, I'm going to hand over to Muslim Ayub Tucker, who is a British citizen living in exile, and his father died in exile as well. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Yes. Paul, can this is hard seat for you.
No, it's what, as I said to you at the beginning, MPs don't mind sitting just
media
for media.
The media always say you don't give space to do. They want to come make it.
I think Paul wanted to sit with the oldest Labour member.
Oh no, not at all. Look, we don't stand on ceremony in meetings that I chair. Yeah, that's not something that I'm particularly good at. So anyway, we hand over to
Thank you very much. I'd also like to appreciate work that the team does. It's not easy carrying an entire movement on your shoulders day in and day out. It's like when we have 3 AM conversations that need to be done.
we have those two.
It can be exhausting, stressful, and families suffer, personal lives suffer, and careers suffer as well. But I also want to extend thanks to yourself as well. But this isn't the first time that I've been here, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. This isn't the first time that I've seen you engaged in Kashmir and other causes, particularly when it comes to women's rights, which in the context of Kashmir is so important right now. I have a lot to say, but I'm guessing that you've probably heard it all before. Most conflict zones suffer pretty much the same kind of violence and atrocities that you would expect. The only thing that differentiates Kashmir from everybody else is that we are probably the most underrepresented and underreported people and cause in the world. Underrepresented because I'm from the territory, the actual occupied territory, from Srinagar itself. I was born in exile for a short period of time. I was allowed to travel to Kashmir. Now I, once again, have been banned from traveling to Kashmir. My wife, born in Kashmir, left at the age of 3, never to return. Father can no longer return. My father, same situation with him, passed away in exile. We tried to bury him in Kashmir, wasn't permitted because he was a national security threat. My son is a national security threat, 18-month-old security threat.
He does look very threatening.
Oh, he's a danger at home. Apparently, the EU government will find him a potential target, which is why he's also not permitted to travel to Kashmir. Now, when I say underreported as well, up 2019 was a breaking point for us. We thought genuinely that maybe this will be it. This will be our Arab Spring. The international community will wake up. The funny thing is that we've had Arab Springs upon Arab Springs way before the original Arab Spring in the Middle East. Ours has been going on since 1947. If I talk about the various types of genocide and ethnic cleansing that's happened in November 1948, in a matter of days, 250,000 people were massacred, millions displaced. Since then, it has been an exponential increase in war crimes and crimes against humanity. And I don't use those words lightly, particularly with what's been happening recently, and the words bandied about so often, so regularly, that people sometimes lose the value of those words. So putting it into context, and not to take anything away from any other cause, be it the Uyghurs, be it the Palestinians, be it the people of Yemen, Syria, whatever it may be, they will suffer. But for long, I've argued, maybe unsuccessfully, but I argued that Kashmir has been the melting pot of all the other, whatever you see that's happening in Palestine, in East Turkestan, in Yemen, all of that put together happens inside Kashmir. You want to talk about burning of children? I will show you the photos in my phone, which is in my pocket. If you want to see the mass rape of women, Gulam Pushpura comes to mind, where an entire village of women were raped, which I'm sure the Shaista will expand on. If you want to talk about children that have suffered, I will tell you about kids that I've seen myself in 2016. Case studies, for example, 5-year-old Nasir, he was captured by the, it's so strange to be using these words together, but a 5-year-old was captured by the Indian army, and then his left eye, was punctured with a needle before sand was poured inside it. For what purpose? I can't even imagine. Even when you use torture as a weapon of interrogation, do you do it on a 5-year-old? Is this the method of torture? I swear sometimes the people of Kashmir, they beg for Guantanamo Bay because it feels like a theme park compared to what we have to go through. When you hear about Asfa Banu, 5-year-old Asfa Banu, what she had to go through, which I'm sure you will speak about. I met a young boy in 2016 that had pellets. Now these pellets, a cartridge holds hundreds of pellets. Tiny little dots made of metal. And these are technically illegal. You can't even use them. I think in most countries you can't even use them on animals because it's far too violent. In Kashmir they use them not on military veterans, not on armed resistant fighters, not on people that are coming out to protest on the streets. On 18-month-old Iba Nisar, 18 months old. Another kid that I saw in 18 months. Now these aren't stories that I'm telling you that I read in the newspaper. I met her. I saw her. I heard her cry. I saw a young boy that his left eye, I think his right eye was punctured completely, blinded in his eye, and you could see the scars of pellets on his face. And I said to him, I pray that you're not going to go out to the streets and protest again. Take some time for yourself. He said to me, and I quote, "God gave me another eye. If I stay at home, who's going to come out into the streets to protest?" And it's not like these people are coming out to protest for something unreasonable. It isn't even to, I can't even, it's not like the way that, for example, again, I can't think of another example because it's happening right now. The way that the Palestinian terms as Hamas protests. It's not even like that in Kashmir. These kids, these people are protesting simply for the release of political prisoners, the rights of determination guaranteed by the United Nations, and peace. That's it. It's honestly that. And then you have the Canadian intelligence, in fact, Prime Minister Trudeau backs that up. That assassination has shocked the world. What if I told you that Said Ali Shakilani, which I also like to thank you for mentioning in the parliament, you quoted him, you used his word, you said his name, a name that is banned inside Kashmir, his organization banned inside Kashmir, that somebody like him was assassinated. What if I told you that somebody like the lawyer, Jalil Andrabi, was not just assassinated? It isn't just about a target into the river. That's the form of assassination that we see here, which is why when I tell you that the people of Kashmir talk about Syria and Palestine and say, we pray that we had things like this. We wish that we were in Guantanamo, because that seems like impact. That seems like at least reasonable for us. Waterboarding? That's nothing. I'll tell you about waterboarding. I'll tell you about Asia and Europe, or rather Shaista will tell you about Asia and Europe, and what kind of waterboarding they had to go through. A human tragedy is one thing, a human catastrophe is something completely different. And I used to use the words, I only use the term growing up, but as I've matured, from human rights violations to human rights catastrophe, because that is exactly what it is. And what is a catastrophe? It is when a people feel that their lives are coming to an end, a complete end, but then even then it's not allowed. When you have dead bodies that are dragged on the streets and not permitted final rights, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Sikh, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, but when your final rights aren't even allowed to be performed, that is a war crime. How many more war crimes do you want me to talk about? Now, those of us that sit outside of the territory, those of us that talk about Kashmir, we suffer as well. And it's not about us. I swear to God, it's not about us. I only use this as an example to emphasize the violence that the people inside Kashmir have to face. When someone like myself has had his career sabotaged by the Indian government, his character assassinated, his wife's character assassinated, that takes a heavy toll on your mental state. It takes a heavy toll on your marriage. When insinuations are about a husband or a wife. It takes a heavy toll when my cousins and my grandmother and my uncles and aunts no longer talk to me on the phone because if they talk to me, they go to jail. My cousin still languishes in jail after being tortured under a loudspeaker in a mosque. He still suffers because he called me. My family don't talk to me. I have no family. The toll it takes on your friends, the ones that you used to consider to be friends, that no longer can communicate with you for fear of being arrested and tortured. That's if we have communication lines agreement. Post-2019, Kashmir has been turned into what, for all intents and purposes, is a second colonization process, which is ironic for a nation that fought against colonialism. India fought against colonialism, and the day that it gained independence, within weeks, it turned into colonization. That is a problem. When did colonization still become normal? When was it acceptable? And it's not just about the colonization of Kashmir, it is also about the ethnic cleansing. Now, ethnic cleansing isn't necessarily, again, it's not maybe the dictionary, but in terms of international law, ethnic cleansing and genocide is not just about literally killing people. It is about taking away their culture, taking away their language, taking away their heritage, rewriting their history. And that's exactly what's happening in Kashmir. Now, as a Muslim, I'll talk about what's happening with the masjids, with the mosques. If a Kashmiri Sikh was here, he will tell you what's happening with the Gurdwaras. Our language, our traditional language is being erased to the point that officially you cannot use it in government offices. You cannot communicate in that language. Thank you very much. You cannot communicate in that language to government officials. You cannot wear the traditional clothes. My son is wearing a traditional cloak on purpose because it's been outlawed in Kashmir. We can't wear that anymore. That's a form of genocide and ethnic cleansing. I've probably gone on too long, and I understand that there are many more people to speak, more qualified and more learned than I. 7th of October, it has to be more than just remembrance. It has to be action. Remembrance in itself is a part of our resistance, because that is one of the key things that India wants to eliminate. A fascist, neo-colonial, right-wing, savage state that wants to expand its borders, an expansionist program called Akhand Bharat. Now, Akhand Bharat is not something I'm making, I wish I were making this stuff up. It is identical to the way that Nazi Germany operated. And again, I hate to use that analogy because we thought that the Allied forces thought we fought fascism. It ended. No, it didn't. It was its rebirth and reincarnation, according to the Hindu scriptures, the way they believe in reincarnation. It was reincarnated way before fascism ended. In 1922, it was envisioned and pretty much aligned with Nazi Germany's philosophy, aligned with their literature. You look at their salute, identical to Nazi Germany. You look at their uniform, identical to Nazi Germany. They had this one nation, one empire, one leader manifesto, Nazis. The RSS, the parent organization of the BJP, believed in a one nation, one party, one leader manifesto. These things are not random. They have been performed on purpose. If you think that it is, that at one point we could have thought that the BJP and the RSS were fringe elements of society. By 1991, in 1988, I think they had like one member of parliament. By 1996, they had 176. Today, that party is now in power. A genocidal regime that wishes to eliminate not just Kashmir. It isn't just about people of Kashmir. I know I may be from Kashmir. It isn't just about that. It is about every single minority. They believe that they are a superior race. Does that sound familiar? It's not dissimilar to what the Nazis believe in their Aryan race theory. So when we talk about solving the Kashmir issue, it isn't just about the people. It is about defeating an ideology that has been reincarnated more than 76 years ago, way before that we were occupied. It is about defeating that. Thank you very much. I apologize for
I have a question here. That you're not wrong in your assessment that you felt like 2019 would be a watershed moment. I mean, obviously the world was slightly mad in 2019 for other reasons, which obviously could not be foreseen. But it wasn't a watershed moment, and I don't know why, and I think that we won't make any progress until we understand why. Now, I am, as a member of Parliament, I mean, actually, the UK's ability to play a role as a good faith actor in this is one undoubtedly that we can have influence on and will always seek to do. I think that at the moment on a global stage we could overstate the UK's ability to actually do things, and I don't wish to overstate that. But why isn't this issue, why doesn't it capture light in the same way that certainly any member of Parliament here today will tell you that the situation in Gaza has caused massively push and resistance? There just isn't. Why do you think that is I suppose what my question is.
It's two-pronged. One of them is extremely brutal and probably going to get me into trouble later. Is that
Try not to say things that will get me into
Oh,
trouble.
you see, the boss is observing everything. The truth is that in my humble assessment as somebody that's been a student of international relations and defense studies, is that the issue of Gaza lit up because of savagery, because of violence. And from the intelligence that I've gathered on the ground by people that are resisting in the methodology that the United Nations has granted them, I'm using parliamentary language.
Yeah. I like it.
They feel over the last couple of weeks that maybe that is what is required.
Yeah.
More definite instruction to get.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm never going to advocate that.
But this is the problem. If the issue is not resolved, the fight is no longer going to be contained within Kashmir. The same way the fight was no longer contained within the West Bank or within Gaza or within Hebron. It starts to go into mainland Israel. I would be very, very concerned if the resistance was so suffocated that they lashed out and they went into mainland India and caused civilian casualties. That is the worst thing that could possibly happen. But sometimes, this again, paraphrasing the people that have spoken, that it can't get worse for us, at least then somebody might intervene.
Look, I mean, look,
I don't agree with
I
that.
mean, also, I think that it's an impossibility. I mean, no matter how much you look at how militarized different areas of occupation are in the world, it's incomparable to that of Kashmir.
Exactly.
It is the most highly militarized zone in the world. I mean, you'd have to be, I mean, the level of, you know, it's just,
It's unimaginable.
it's unimaginable. But also, I think that, like, that it feels a little bit like, to me, as a politician who has to respond to these things, what it feels like is a blackout. And I don't literally have blackouts, but I don't mean it like that. I mean, like, I don't see enough. I don't think there isn't enough focus on what is happening on the ground. Also, the relative strength and power of India undoubtedly is part of that particular issue, and our country's, you know, reliance and economically and or otherwise is undoubtedly a problem. But I wonder why in the population it doesn't spark as much.
You mean here?
Yeah, in the UK. Like, we're frightened when our constituents are all really, and you know, don't get me wrong, my constituents do that about Kashmir, you know, and lots of people around the room's constituents will be doing that about Kashmir. However, it doesn't feel quite the same, and I just wonder why. I don't know whether Kim wants to come in. Kim from Batley and Spain.
Hi, I'm Kim Edwards, Member of Parliament for Batley and Spain in West Yorkshire, and Kashmir certainly is an issue for a number of my constituents. I attended the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Kashmir yesterday, and I asked this question, and I'll ask it again now. One of the things I think seems to be problematic is the fact that there isn't one unified organisation within the UK who speak up on Kashmir. It seems to be that there's different organisations and different groups, and the sad response I got yesterday was that people don't seem particularly positive that that's going to change. But is there anything that anybody can do to try and bring those voices together so that they've got a strength in numbers and to make those voices heard?
I have a provisional solution for that. I think.
What about solutions?
I think that when you mentioned something that I didn't, which was one of the reasons why it's not picked up. I think there was a deafening silence, mainly because reporting when what happened in Leicester was an extension. It may not have been necessarily related to Kashmir, but it was in relation to what I was talking about, any ashes in the Plastics program. But the solution in regards to Kashmir is that when we talk about no solid core leadership, would be for Incan, unequivocally. And even though that he lives on the other side of Kashmir, but his credentials, his credentials and his work speaks for itself. He's not a seasonal. I excuse the phrase, and I don't mean to offend any members of parliament. He's not a seasonal politician, where he comes out when it's necessary, when the wind is blowing the right direction. He does it day in and day out. Today, considering what's been going on around, particularly in the Middle East, he still had the sensibility to do something about Kashmir because it is an important day, whereas others might not have. In that sense, authentic voices that have been championing Kashmir for a long time, unbiased, able to work with every single organisation, that is important. And I'm not saying this to blows to
Feel free to use that sort of language in front of me. Maybe about it.
I'm not saying this because he's here in front of me. It's something that you have to recognise, even skilled in your enemies. You have to be honest enough to be able to recognise the skill in your enemies, let alone your friends, people that have. And the sacrifice, I know personally, maybe not everybody in the room does, but I know personally the sacrifice that he's made for Kashmir. So when different organisations, they may be splinter organisations, smaller organisations, but none that capture quite the imagination as they did in Kashmir that the organisations continue today. So I would point towards him, particularly him. I would also, with humility, point towards indigenous Kashmiris that have been active for pretty much their entire lives. it may not necessarily be me. Just because I'm here, that does not mean me. There are several senior indigenous people from occupied Kashmir that have been in this for longer than I've been alive. They truly represent that cause as well. That's where the voices are, not people that have affiliation with one particular political party. And I don't mean in the UK. I mean bringing baggage from.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way that
I
I
don't
want
mind if they have political affiliation, different political affiliations in the UK. We're one team when it comes to
Exactly.
if it comes to that. So thank you Paul for coming along. I was going to bring in Shasta first. Oh, do you want to? You go for it, yes, mate. And then I'll bring in Shasta.
Sorry for interrupting. Well, I mean, I have to do a little declaration here. My great-grandparents were born in the Indian occupied Kashmir, before then they moved to Punjab and became part of Pakistan. What's happening in Kashmir is unacceptable. Not just the human rights violation. In recent years, so for example, when there's been a protest, people have had pellet bombs shot at them, people have been blinded. The fact that there is what, 1 million Indian soldiers occupied Kashmir, the most militarized zone in the world. And at the same time, we have the Indian government passing legislation splitting Kashmir up into different areas, and then allowing other people to come in and buy their land and work there. That will change the demographics. And we know what the intention is. It's basically to get rid of the Palestinians, get rid of the Kashmiris from there.
It just says how similar these causes are.
Very similar, yes.
Sorry, it's been a week.
No, I mean, so, and you know, they're trying to control them so that it becomes impossible for effectively a referendum to take place. And that's what they're up to. And in addition to that, of course, they are frightening and terrorizing the communities. So, for example, they passed legislation many years ago, and over thousands of people have been arrested without due process of law and languishing in prison. People don't know where their families are. It's not as if the family members have been told, but they just, as far as they're concerned, they're missing people. And it's all, of course, done deliberately to depress and humiliate the nations. You know, Jesse said a very important question, why don't people talk about it? I think maybe they think that, I mean, the issue of Palestine is so hard. On the other hand, Kashmir is even harder because India now, after China, is the most populous country in the world. It is now coming up to be one of the superpowers sooner or later. And trying to challenge and get them to change their narrative is becoming harder and harder. And also maybe let's, they think that at least the Kashmiri people are in their own land. They might be subjected to abuse, they may have human rights violations, they may not have a legal sort of independence, but perhaps they live in their own land. Maybe that's why, perhaps, when when we talk about Palestine, we've got issue of 3 million people being expelled effectively from the land and can't get back in. It could well be that it's an issue that's written a lot more about because of historical consequences, because it was something that Kashmir was a bit like British decisions on when we left after the aftermath of the empire. But I think it's much more I think it's a topic everybody knows much more about, and I think that's probably why there's more talk about it, and that's what's happening. So the question is really, we've said this before, effectively, Jess and I and others, we get many hundreds of emails from our constituents. I mean,
It was just hundreds.
thousands actually. So whenever Palestine issue happens, I would get something between anything between 1,000 and 20,000, some people get more, some might get a bit less. And it's not just, and this is very important, it's like a Muslim issue, even. A lot of my constituents writing to me not. essentially human rights issue. But because I think that people write more about it than another issue, I think that's why perhaps some people might get more Kashmir issues. I don't know. I mean, I get some Kashmir emails and letters on Kashmir, but I can assure you nothing similar to what I get for Palestine. An interesting thing, I mean, I raised the issue of Kashmir for many, many years. This is I raised the issue of Palestine. But you know what? I've actually raised the issue of the Uyghurs as well in China. I raised the issue of the Rohingyas in Burma. I raised the issue of the Bosnian genocide. I've got that set up, and we have a commemoration every year in Parliament. But you know, very few people wrote to me. Not as many people wrote to me about those three. Again, I think because I don't know, maybe not enough to know about it, maybe they knew recent events. So I would say the members of Parliament needs to be educated on this. I would say wherever Kashmiris live, in whichever part of the United Kingdom, they should not only bring right, but actually say they want to go and meet their member of Parliament. Even a half an hour chat, basically, explain about the conflict. And then ask them to raise questions about it in Parliament and ask the minister questions on it. I think that's where you get the right
Mohammed, yes, sorry.
I'll make 3 points. Thank you so much. I'm Mohammed Yasin, member of Parliament for Better. I have to go in a couple of minutes to another meeting. Yes, we need to half of my time. So the question Kim asked why there's no unified voice for communities in this country is because of political parties from Pakistan. They got huge influence here. They use the community for their own benefit, and they don't let the community get together on this issue. That's the one thing. And I strongly believe that Pakistani or any other political party should not have the right to play out, to leave this community alone and in peace. And the second one is that the point you made, that why community is not highlighted in news here as Palestine issue, because media have no access in India for that issue. That's a major issue. And thirdly, I would like to ask the question from gentleman. I'm really sorry, I don't know your name because I was late. Zaman Sahib, yes. Welcome here. And you know, I believe that Kashmiri issues alive in this country because of this parliament and the Kashmiri diaspora in this country. They keep writing to their MPs and keep highlighting, and that's the reason that MPs come here in these rooms and we had a debate in Parliament as well not long ago. So what further you expect from this Parliament to do on the issue of Kashmir? What's the Kashmiri community want from this Parliament to do for them? So I think we're doing more than any other Parliament in the world for Kashmiri people.
I mean, we have a resolution that comes out of this meeting that we will discuss, but I will let you answer that.
You see, I don't know whether I should make a distinction between the Parliament and between the parties, because with Conservatives in power right now, Rishi Sunak in power right now, who is, for all intents and purposes, the son-in-law of India. I really don't know how much I can expect from him. Not to be disparaging to the party either, but in 2019, that the statement in regards to Kashmir was not a positive statement. We didn't receive it positively, at least. But in terms of expectations, generally the expectations is that with the same zeal and passion that parliamentarians are able to talk about various issues like the Uyghurs, as our Honourable Member of Parliament said, or for that matter, the Palestinians, or for that matter, the issue of Yemen, the Rohingya, Afghanistan. I mean, these are all issues that people have passion and zeal for. There is a fault, you're absolutely right. There is a fault on our part that we may be not giving enough information and putting enough pressure on our parliamentarians. But I don't think.
I don't know that I'm asking for much more. At the moment, I could live without the amount of pressure that I mentioned.
But I think tangibly, I think the education part, I don't think every single parliamentarian, again, you're the exception to the rule, there needs to be more cross-party, cross-parliamentarian thinking about Kashmir. And maybe it needs to be done in a way where it is more effective than, as you said, political parties that have baggage from Pakistan are talking. It doesn't reflect well for the Kashmir cause, and it doesn't work well for members of Parliament of the UK.
it's misunderstood by, so, you know, like, whilst I have one of the largest Kashmiri populations, if not the largest in the, I'm about to in my newly drawn seat in the country, I am not au fait with the political parties of Pakistan and what baggage that might be. I'd come to it solely with the hearts and minds of my constituents and their families in mind. But however, that's a tactical failure on my part. Not seeking, to have a go at myself, but there is something about that I think that maybe we need to get over, and also what we have to do. And certainly, COVID definitely got in the way of this. But myself and Fahim have discussed, for example, British parliamentarians, women. If we just continue to make this a sort of Pakistan versus India issue, or one that is only, rather than focusing on the different elements of human rights, I think that, and like I say, I never think that we should, if the Labour government comes to power, I don't want to overplay what power Britain actually has in this. We are weakened internationally, and all we could do is act as a diplomatic, reasonable broker on such matters. We won't, a Labour government won't deliver overnight a free Kashmir. I'd be lying to you if I stood on a rally and shouted that. It would just be a lie. But what it can do is be a good and a friendly, honest broker on an international stage, and that's what it should seek to do. But I do really feel like it, and I absolutely credit Fahim for doing some of this work, because when I first started attending Kashmiri events, the plight of the women and the voices of the women of Kashmir were not in those rooms. And I said, come on, let's get some women. I think I once said, I'm not coming to a meeting if there aren't any women in it. Such is my will in life. And like there is definitely other spaces that we should seek to go in, and shouldn't expect this parliament, like you say, to be the ultimate answer. We've got to take it global. Let's go global. So I'm going to bring in Shaista now, and then we'll sort of get back to the program. MPs will come and go. We do have votes, but hopefully not while this meeting is going on. So Shaista, let's hear from you. Do you want me to look after your child for a little bit? I can manage. I can definitely manage that. Yeah, look, you're clapping to your mum. Yeah, give her a clap.
So thank you very much. And it's his second time he's here, and the reason we bring Mohammed with us is we have seen this occupation since we were born. Every child when is born, usually is born in Kashmir, they are under occupation. We are living in exile, but this exile, people may think that it's a very luxurious thing to be in exile. But those who live and who die in exile know what this exile is. I still remember my mother died of cancer, but in her mind, every time it was Kashmir. And from that, I always say that this occupation is a cancer for us. And when people give us those band-aids, like if India restores our internet, people start cheering. This is just like a band-aid for us. We are dealing with cancer, and right now what Palestine is going through, people will understand that this is the occupation that we have to deal with. Whatever is happening today is because of the occupation. Until and unless we don't deal with occupation, we don't deal with the real problems, we'll have problems like what we are facing today in Palestine. We have seen what happened in Kashmir. 2016, 2019, 2008, 2010, a year was declared epidemic of dead eyes. We have never heard this before. A full year dedicated to Kashmiri children who were blinded in both of their eyes. And hundreds and thousands of children. Zamil mentioned 18 months old Hiba. My son is 18 months old. I can't even imagine if anything happens to him. Just put yourself in the shoes of those mothers, those Kashmiri mothers and those sisters and those wives, half widows we talk about. We are indifferent to now these words. Half wife, term for Kashmiri wives. Half orphan, term for Kashmiri children. Pallet victims, term for Kashmiri children. What are we doing with, where are we taking these numbers? We just talked about, if this is a number, this is somebody's son, this is somebody's daughter. If we give these numbers a name, Insha Mushtaq, 14 years old girl, student of the 10th class, just peeping out of the window and Alice comes and she is blinded in both her eyes. Same, Hiba Nisa, again I'll mention her. She was not attending any protest, or she was not protesting anywhere. She was in her mother's lap. Even in Kashmir, mother's lap is not safe heaven for a child. You can be killed, you can be maimed, you can be raped anywhere. When we talk about this gender violence, I'm not taking away that men are not being criminalized or they are not being treated, they are being treated well. But we see that children and women, they don't go into wars. War comes to them. We don't say let's have a war and we are ready for a war.
It's
No.
never us that starts them. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
right.
it's not never us. So, women and children, as in Palestine right now, we see when these pictures come, we can feel that this can be us, this can be our child, this can be our sister, this can be
I mean,
anyone.
across the region, actually, both, it was Israel, it was specific targeting of women.
Women
You know,
and
it's-
children,
it
because
always
this is the way
comes
this is
after
the way
women.
they punish the men by killing the wives, by torturing. Same is the case in Kashmir. To shame or to punish the man for doing, for getting into resistance or raising the slogan of Azadi, they punish the wives. They punish. You can see Kanan Poshpura. We always talk about Kanan Poshpura. We talk about Asiya and Nilofer. We talk about Asma, just 8 years old girl who was raped in a Jammu temple. These are all cases we have to bring forward to the world and tell them this is happening in Kashmir and it will continue. If the occupation is not, we don't deal with the occupation. We have seen so many cases that Kashmiris, so many case studies that Kashmiris go through, the post and the PTSD we suffer through. If we talk to the Doctors Without Borders, they say that this is the highest rate they have seen the post this PTSD and the trauma they go through every day. Just imagine if you have to go to a school and you have to cross 10 of the army bunkers and the way they speak, the way they see towards you, those lewd remarks, you won't even want to live. We have to live in this occupation. We are not fear of death. We are fear of living in that occupation. We are fear of that criminalization that we have to face every day. Just imagine, this is a very common thing that you come to this parliament and you have to go through a security check, but this is very respectful security check you go through. Then now imagine, every day you have to go from, you leave your house and you have to go to your school, 10 times you have to go through this security, this kind of security, and God forbid you have to go through that kind of lewd remark and the eyes, they see you, the scan through your eyes, and the way they threaten you with everything, and even rape is just a little threat they can give it to you. So these are all the things Kashmiri children, Kashmiri girls go through every day just to go to school. And you have to imagine what Kashmiri women, what Kashmiri girls, what Kashmiri children have to go through every day living in that occupation. We take our azadi, we take our freedom very for granted while living in this world. We saw during the time of Corona, those restrictions were for us, for our benefit. But still everyone was complaining that mental health issues and everything, we can't stay inside. Now, remember in 2019, the lockdown Kashmiri faced, the lockdown, the internet blockage, those faced. thing, and then remind ourselves that Palestine and Kashmir are same issues. But the thing that, in my opinion, what differentiates us is, as Muzammil rightly said, we are unreported. Our cases don't get as highlighted because we are being killed silently. We are being drugged, we are being abused, we are being maimed, we are being tortured. Everything that an occupier can do, India is doing to us, and learning from the best Israel, but doing it more effectively that even people here or people in the Western world don't speak or write about more. So one of the speakers asked what we can do, but I request you to organize a complete focused on international conference on women and children of Kashmir, where Kashmiri women will speak and MPs will listen. We'll give our testimony that what we go through.
Can we go?
Can
I go?
India has to.
You know the chair of the APBG Kashmir.
Yeah, no, but she was banned by it, yeah, I understand.
So you're
It's
saying here.
worth a try, isn't it? It's worth
Absolutely.
a try for me to go out, because you mentioned doctors without
She already
borders.
discussed this idea, she's got a Marxist feminist.
Yeah, so like the idea of so to me, I think that the global feminist movement has largely ignored this particular issue. Even from the point of view of sort of aid, like there's a huge push around foreign aid around the education of girls, for example, and girls used rape as a weapon of war. These are well understood policy areas within the feminist movement. I hear a lot about it in lots of other parts of the world. I don't hear so much about it when focusing on Kashmir. Now, if there are aid agencies like Doctors Without Borders, like Plan International, like Save the Children, if there are those aid agencies working in the region on the girls' issue, and this is on me, I will go away and find out exactly what that looks like. That I will then attempt to go with those aid agencies to try and see it. I mean, not just because people in my constituency tell me that Kashmir is the most beautiful place on earth. I mean, literally, that's all I ever hear. But I really do feel like getting the NGOs, the global NGOs, as you mentioned, Doctors Without Borders, but that are bit more of a campaigning role in this as well, and a touchstone, because at the moment, like Islamic Relief, Medical Aid for Palestinians, Save the Children, Oxfam, they are up in my grill at the moment about Palestine. Like, rightly so, I'm not criticising, but they are right in my, I mean, literally the chief executive of Medical Aid for Palestinians, I speak to her every single day at the moment, literally every single day, more than 5 times a day. So I think that looking at what summit around women and the women and girls of Kashmir and how this will be affecting their lives for the rest of their lives, their education, their prospects, their abilities, as well as just the fundamentals of their safety. Is absolutely something that I should commit to, and I'm only too aware at the moment. My sister-in-law is, both my sister-in-laws actually are Muslims. My sister-in-law is from Iran, and she left when she was 3 years old as a refugee, and she's currently, very sadly, she is dying, and all she thinks about at the moment, because she can't go there, and her children will never visit there because it's not safe. All she thinks about at the moment is Iran. And you didn't imagine, I mean, to all intents and purposes, she's as British as a person could possibly ever be. The most British woman in the world, and yet in her dying, the exile from the place she was born has come out so much more fiercely than I ever expected it to. So, as somebody who literally lives 2 streets away from where I was born, I can't imagine the pull that that watching somebody in their most humane moments feel exiled is very, very painful. So I feel 100% sort of the sense of what it must feel like to not ever be able to introduce your child. Like, my nephews will never meet their Iranian family in lots of cases. And they'll never visit the land their mother played in. And that is heartbreaking. That feels heartbreaking, so I do understand how painful that must be. But yeah, we need to focus on the women of Kashmir. I want to bring in Lord Roger Camp, who's here, who's been very kind to me this week. I just want to say thanks. Very, very kind to me this week. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Jess, and good afternoon, everybody. Big welcome to the House of Parliament, and thank you very much, Jess, for hosting this conference. And Jess mentioned the amount of pressure politicians are going through the moment, and Jess is phenomenal because she can work better under pressure, but she also has to recognise that a lot of people are it's a really difficult time, and also pay tribute to the efforts on this course continuously. I think your constituents are lucky to have you as a member of Parliament who is so strong, not just in Parliament, but strong moving and shaking the leadership on this issue in particular. I've also with your sister-in-law, and they do all manage to make it easy for her. I suppose also follow Shyster and previously Mazzano. It's a really dark time at the moment for the global the stage. And look at around the world isn't at peace at the moment, and we pray for that peace. We pray for obviously people to live their life with dignity and exercise their human rights to the best of their ability. Let me just be clear, for Johnny, as somebody I worked for many years in the European Parliament, the point of cross-party working together. In the European Parliament, we managed to secure a historic meeting in 2019 February. And what's really important is that we couldn't have done that without cross-party support. So I think that point is really important. We have a Friends of Kashmir, which are the great chairs, who I work very closely with them and help to set up the Friends of Kashmir. We have an APPG of Kashmir, which Debbie Abrams, excellent chairs and provides coordination. And what's really important for all of you is that somebody mentioned before Islam initiative in Kashmir. I think it's taken a lot of effort and also from people like Jess and other parliamentary colleagues to ensure that here is on the right page. And only just last few months, I just want you to read out our national policy for statement on Kashmir. So where do we stand on Kashmir? And these are the words, so you, without doubt, you can hear exactly what our manifesto wording on Kashmir is. And it says, Labour supports and recognises UN resolutions on the rights of the Kashmiri people, but maintains that a lasting settlement to end this conflict can only be achieved by India and Pakistan working together with the people of Kashmir. We will call for thorough and transparent investigations on allegations of human rights violations. That is clear wording. And I know some people might say this, but that. I think that is recognises that human rights abuses are to be condemned, and the Kashmiri people should be a central part of the conversation in determining a future for Kashmir. Now, let's be quite honest here. United Nations are trying to deal with many conflicts. The United Nations resolutions, the resolutions are there, and the United Nations needs to implement that for the people of Kashmir. But there are also forces out there continuously attacking the United Nations. I believe in the United Nations as a great institution. It is there after the aftermath of world wars and conflicts, and I think it's important that the United Nations should be able to do its job, and we should be able to be given support and capacity to do the job. What we want to see is a life where people, where your children can go back and visit their ancestral land and connect with their roots and understand their culture. And I pay tribute to people like Muslim and Shaisa, because we often never hear the voices of the Indian side of Kashmir. We hear a lot from Azad Kashmir, but we don't get as many voices to understand what it's like living on that particular side. And I think you speak very eloquently and articulate a very strong, absolute clear vision for people in India as to how they want to see a future which is living a dignity and free from violence. And look, we take it for granted. When I put my 6-month-old child to sleep, and then in another part of the world, you have children in Kashmir who are blinded by handguns, and there is a legislation called the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which is AFSPA, which gives people impunity, public order act, these are archaic, very outdated pieces of legislation which allows this human rights violation to thrive. Because when people know that there's impunity, that nothing will happen to you, there's nobody ever been arrested from the military personnel in India ever for the perpetration of human rights violations. People, the women from one Pushpara are still seeking justice. Half widows, mass graves. Look, Kashmiri blood isn't cheaper than European blood or British blood. I always say this, Kashmiris are not asking for charity. They're asking for rights, them rights, which is promised by the international community, United Nations.
Really not asking for much.
Not everything.
I mean, maybe demand some more.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very basic what is being asked for.
I'll finish one point, and just makes a very important point. A lot of the time in the Kashmir cause, it's a lot of men talking to men. That has to change. And you're quite absolutely right. Of course, women have never ever been part of bringing conflict, but women have a strong role to end the conflict. And we need to make sure that them women voices are more prevalent, and we as men of Pakistani and Kashmiri, or wherever Indian, wherever we come from, we need to do much more to ensure that women voices are actually at these meetings and at the very central, because I know that that is a big problem. We always have a lot of always men talking to each other. What does that do for Kashmir? We need to diversify, change tactics, change strategy. And look, it's difficult. Me and Jess will be able to make our noises internally in our back channels, but in our political domestic circles and networks, as well as raising the voice of Kashmiri children, women, old people, elderly, whoever suffering. We will do that. But ultimately, we've got to have the expectation clear. This is a historical conflict, which I'm ashamed to say this historically. Whenever we did partition, we were never really good at partition.
Not been our finest
Not
hour.
been our finest hour. Not our skill
As
set.
a rule,
Yeah, but
let me avoid that in the future.
absolutely. And what we will say, finish up again, to the other speakers, is pay tribute to all those people out there continuously, consistently, never giving up. And I pay tribute to the Kashmiri people who have suffered for so many years, but their resilience is absolutely commendable. I salute them. And what's really important, every time you raise your voice, Kashmiri, whether that's social media and whether that's in protest, I had one person from Sri said to me, I said, we keep raising our voices, we just do now, we can't drop, what do you think sometimes? He said, no, every time you raise your voice, or some other person raises their voice, remember, it gives us that hope, and that desire to never give up. So thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be supportive of this just campaign. I will continue to do whatever I can and work with great colleagues like Jess in the work she's doing.
And I'm going to take your advice now and next call Miss Nyla Asmus to have the voice of a woman.
I'm just going to echo the words that you mentioned earlier when you said about the Commission for Status of Women, the conference, the summit, they just wish us to look at holding that in the future. And I said to the Kashmir and look at host impact in the future, working in conjunction with you. They're doing a setting a date for that. To having more women contributing to the conference, because there's only a very small select number of women in today, which shows it's not.
Some of these meetings that I've been in, there's a lot more women than normal.
But
No offence to the men.
generally speaking, we need to have more representation, especially from the Kashmiri population as well, to give the first-hand testimony of what's been going on there, and in terms of the future, what can be done in terms of education. And looking at obviously ending the conflict, coming up with a resolution, and more awareness, and maybe having somebody to advocate for them as well. Because I think a lot with the causes that are happening across the world, such as what happened in Afghanistan many years ago, Malala was the poster girl at the time,
Also a constituent of Birmingham Yardley, just gonna say.
And
All the best people come from Birmingham Yardley.
And yeah, so she kind of brought that global recognition, and obviously everybody knows who she is. So in terms of that point of view, maybe having somebody like an ambassador to highlight the cause or apply to the Kashmiri people around the world, so it's not kind of sidelined or marginalised.
There was some girls, weren't there, in Kashmir? There was some girls doing like social media output. I think it was probably stopped, but there's like some young teenage girls doing some creative stuff.
They started.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
started doing, but
yeah, then it was
yeah,
stopped.
They got censored.
Yeah, yeah. I remember having this moment, seeing some of it, having this moment of hope. But yeah, it was. But we need to find those voices, and we need to ask them what we can do to help them. Like your Malala point is a good one, because actually we need to. If they can't get the output, like making silly TikTok videos with Catty, but like we need their voices.
I mean, that's how she started out. She was writing on the BBC
Yeah,
website, and that's how she got noticed. Obviously, it was a catastrophe, obviously, what happened. I'm not saying something like that to happen, to bring it to the
God, I don't want that to happen.
No, but just generally
They'll all
speaking,
end up being my constituents. They're all come.
they don't have the treatment of QE.
Yeah, that's it. They're all human.
But yeah, just as something to kind of do increase the awareness campaign on a worldwide point of view. Like, feel like, for example, like Angela Jolie, she takes a lot of causes, like what happened with the Pakistan floods. She was ambassador there, and she came to see what was happening on the ground. There's no peace speech to Kashmir in that point of view to highlight what's happening day to day, because the women there are feeling their life a threat on a daily basis, isn't it? And the genocide that's happening. So we want to see obviously resolution there and some diplomatic talks to bring an end to it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. We just need, like, a few of us, the women, we will get together, get our heads together, have some meeting points. Where do you live, Shaz? Do you live in, oh, okay, well, I live in both places, so that's convenient for me. Yeah, we have to have an action. We can't just have these meetings and there's been no actions following it. So we will make sure that unfortunately Janie who works in my office has gone home ill because she ate some bad mussels. We will get a date in for a group of women to sit down and come up with a plan together and about what we want to see. We will report back to this group afterwards. I'm now going to bring in Councillor Majid Hussain. There you are.
Me. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Fahim for organising this and just for attending this and sharing this. I really appreciate that. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So I'm a proud British Kashmiri. I'm a county councillor. Now it's a unitary council from Buckinghamshire and High Wycombe. So when you said that your constituency might be made of majority of Kashmiris or Pakistanis, and the pressure that you're going to go through, let me tell you, the constituency I represent and I live in is made up of 80% of Kashmiris. So you can feel the pressure that I'm getting at the moment with the current situation that we're all going through, and the pressure that I have. So it's not easy, it is really difficult. I had a few questions written down, but I'm just going to go over what everybody has just said. I mean, what we need to look at is who left the Kashmir issue unresolved at the start. 76 years is way too long for this issue not to be resolved. And as we're speaking here, there are probably innocent civilians losing lives. For a second, just let that sink in and think about that. Civilians, innocent civilians losing their lives. There's no supply of water, maybe, food, medical. We don't get to hear about the issues in Kashmir. It's because everything is limited. We only get shown what they need to be shown, and that's it. Now, over the past years, all the successive governments that have come in, they've always said this is an issue between India and Pakistan. If Labour government comes in to power, which I hope to do, what kind of part will Labour government play in this to resolve the issue of Kashmir between India and Pakistan? There's a lot to talk about, way more than what most of you have got in your mind. If I carry on, I thought we can carry on for another two hours, because I come from Kashmir, so I know the pain. The sister there said the security that they have to go through. You get the feel of that as soon as you land in the airport in Pakistan. I know what it feels like going through the security and the humiliation that we feel when we get there. We get treated like third-class citizens. So I know what the Muzammil has said. The pain that they go through, the families that go through. 18-month-old baby. Just let that sink in. 18-month-old baby labeled as terrorist. We are privileged to be where we are. We can speak freely. We can say what we want to say in this country. We're living our life, best life in this country. And yet we have brothers and sisters in Kashmir who are suffering, who are not even getting a 3-4 meal in a day. Let that sink in for a minute. So my question to you, Jess, was, I think we're meeting up next month anyway. You're coming down with High Wycombe.
Meant to be, yeah.
Yes,
I travel all over the country.
I hope you do. We have so many Kashmiri organisations within UK, and somebody did say, I think Kim said, what can we do? And MP Mohammed Yassin said that the political parties in Pakistan that play a major part. I agree. We still follow village politics, even though we're here. We still follow that village politics.
Can I just say, the way that you all describe villages, people in my constituency will talk about villages and how people are from their villages. And I think a village is a different thing in my head. Because these villages seem to have tens of thousands of people in them, and a village to me is 3 people in a post office. When people are like, he's from our village, he's like, you might be another person who's from your village.
Shall I say extended village then? Extended
Your villages seem as big as Birmingham, is what I'm going to say.
But the question is, how do we come over that? We do need to unite. We need to unite here for the sake of the humanity. Forget your party politics. Forget your party politics. I've always said this. When it comes to a humanity attack, we all need to unite. You have your House of Commons. We have our council chambers to defend our party policies. We got our right to do that. But when it comes to attack on humanity, we have to unite, regardless of what colour, what breed, what party politics you represent. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I agree 100% to unite in that. And actually, what you cannot have, and the reason that I work so closely with Benny on this topic, because he's my constituent and he has my personal phone number, is because it's not about him. I know we've all said thank you to him, and actually it bears saying, it's not about him, it's not the reason that he's doing it, and we have to make sure that not just political parties and other people's allegiances get in the way, but also people's egos must never get in the way. It has to be, and it's why it's so refreshing to hear voices from occupied Kashmir, because their voices are so marginalised in the debates. They are so few in number for us to engage with that I think we end up in a dangerous position when it becomes about something else, about politics, about egos, about grandstanding, rather than just this singly bloody focus on them, the people, and what is happening to them. And that, I think, is absolutely and if people don't, if people want to use the issue, for their own ends and things, then you crack on, we'll just crack on with the work. We have to stay focused on just getting on with the work, I think, is probably where I would say I am. This is written in pen, is it Lashari?
Thank you very much, Jeff. I think I will start with your comment when you said bringing people together is very important. I run an organization for the past 28 years, third world soldier. The slogan is bringing people together. And I work with everybody and anybody. But second thing, again, it is to work with. I'm very pleased that Muzammal and Shasta and other Majid you have said, and Naila has said very rightly, the Kashmiri issue. I'm a proud British Pakistan, and I have been lived here, but I was exiled during a dictator. So I do understand what exile means. So I live here, and sometimes your parents are here. He was a great friend of mine. You talked us up, but I have worked with many just other parliamentarians. I used to have, and I'm again restarting all party parliamentary group on third world solidarity, which bring in people from Ethiopia, from Cuba, from all over the world. And what happens is there are two types of people in to yours. There is 98% of the people who are born for themselves, live for themselves, and die for themselves. They die here in their lives, because they are found in their houses. But there are other people like Fahim, and I will just say, who are born for others, live for others, and die for others. They will never die. And I think we all should appreciate this. The people who are working hard in very difficult circumstances. I am a very strong labor supporter, and I think I came to this parliament when you were 1 year.
Yeah, okay. Born in 1981,
So
so.
I came in 1981, exactly on
Okay, well, the year I was born, so.
14th of June.
I feel about 150 after this last week, is what I'm going to say.
I'm still a very young man.
You look good on it, mate.
73, so I was.
It's amazing for 73, well,
Yeah, I was invited by Tom Fox, and then I met Tony Benn, so you will understand, pretty understand. But I think it is very important that, and for Kashmiris particularly, when we say you should get united, no. Human beings cannot get united because they have their personal, their political, and their other agendas. So we should only unite on issues. And I think on Palestine issue, on Yemen issue, on many others, and particularly with humanity, we should get together without our allegiances to other areas. I think it is very important that when we speak about Kashmir, our main target is the 10 million plus people living in Kashmir in a prison. So think of it, for 76 years with over 1 million directly armed forces plus again who are standing on their doors and are killing. I think it is very important that human rights are very important for everybody. We have third world in Britain as well. Sometimes I go to there. I was a counselor in the Hampton ward and Bourbon ward, which is the most deprived ward in the country. I said it is the distance is 1.5 miles and life expectancy difference is 15 years. So you can understand it is everywhere. So we should not ignore and say only that we are working here for certain communities or certain areas. We should work for everybody, and human rights violation, wherever it happens, we should stand together and stand up as and we should work for human beings, irrespective of their religion, their caste. And I think on women issues, I will end by it because I know there is a resolution and a lot of. I think we live in a parental society, but we should change it because wherever it is led by women, they have delivered better because they are mothers, they are sisters.
So you hear to that, my friend.
I think it is very important that we give the leadership to women, and very good that I have been watching you have done a marvelous task.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And even though, you know, as I said, Kensington and Chelsea seems posh, it doesn't stop the people at the Grenfell Tower perishing.
I live there, thank God.
So you are absolutely right. There is all sorts of people, you know, the human rights issues all over. Right, we're now going to turn to the. Oh, it's okay.
Well,
Go for it.
was yeah,
You weren't on
just
it, you weren't on
a
it.
quick one. I mean, a lot of things have been said, but the elephant in the room is, and the Shahs have said, well, we mustn't mention Muslims. I I think why is it that we need to think, why is it in the Muslim world, Muslims are suffering all over the world? And what's the West doing about it?
What's
The West.
the West? Sorry, okay.
Why is it that they're reluctant to speak up? You know, those are the questions that we ask. We should. Why aren't we speaking up? And where's the clarity coming from? You know, apart from the Ukraine war and maybe South America, a couple of countries, everywhere you see the Muslims are being persecuted. You know, and we need to now wake up and say that. And nobody, and people, you know, people, I mean, you are one of the good ones.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you for being there and your colleagues who turned out today. But, you know, you said that, you know, maybe in the world after 2019, we haven't got that maybe a valued contributory to the world stage. What's Labour going to do? You know, from our leadership, some of the comments that come up, you know, us as councillors, and you heard, we are so much under pressure from our community, you know, that resign. You know, that is not the solution. We know that. You know, and we are pushing back and saying, no, we need to stay on the table and fight this. But until we say what reality is, why is it that Muslims are being persecuted all over the world and nobody's speaking up? And I think that's maybe we need to concentrate.
What I'm going to say to you is I'm not going to pretend to put this question. I think that you as councillors, the councillors are going to can't treat that particularly well.
And being the only British Labour councillor in the whole of Buckinghamshire, you can imagine.
Yeah.
From 140 councillors.
I'm stunned to hear we've got some in Buckinghamshire,
Yeah,
so that is.
So we got 147 total councillors, and I'm the only, well, from
But,
Labour,
yeah,
I'm the only.
What we have to be very careful of is not to let this, you know, your fundamental point about Muslims being persecuted around the world, regardless of where that happens, and people feeling, you know, the sort of the political okayness of that, rather than like a global cry, is one I will take. You know, you know, for Andrew who's just come into the meeting, you know, I won't ever seek to try and not to answer questions, and certainly try to address some of the issues that we faced this last week when we came in. I think that we need a very, 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 very strong voice for a very, 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 very hurt.
We're not saying that we want to be favoritism. We're saying, you know, people says everybody.
But also, I think we need to be really careful, and I've made this mistake during this meeting as well myself, of making out like this is a Muslim issue. I am not a Muslim. I have lived in a majoritively Muslim community all of my life, and so maybe culturally, like you know, like. But this is a human rights issue. This goes back to the issue. This is a human rights issue, and where all around the world, Muslim people are either persecuted, starved, killed, having their eyes poked out, like, you know, whatever it is, we should feel that calling it out, regardless of how powerful the people who perpetrate it are, we should call it out as we would call it out if it were happening on our streets. Like, your child is the most important person in the room, because your child reminds us of our children and what we would and wouldn't tolerate for our children. Regardless of, you know, all one God and all that jazz. You know, it's all, you know, we all believe in that fundamentally. But it does, and I agree that politically it sometimes feels as if globally Muslim lives matter less. That's how people, that's certainly, whether that is the, you know, bears out, that's certainly how the people I represent feel. And that has to be responded to. I'm going to turn to Andrew for a minute, who's just come in, and
Andrew is the chair of Labour Friends of Kashmir.
He's a good friend of Kashmir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
And look, as Jess has
answered, this is an incredibly difficult time, not just for Muslims, but for those of us that believe in the fundamental and universality of human rights. Human rights are our birthright. Wherever we live, wherever we're born, they are universal and they matter. And it's human rights that brought me to the Kashmir issue. Like Jess, who's lived in a majority Muslim community all her life, I haven't. I don't represent a very large Muslim community. My constituency is 98% white, very working class, very kind of edge of city focused in its mindset, very Brexit leaning. And I came to the Kashmir issue because a small number of Kashmiri elders who do live in my constituency came to me about what was happening to their brothers and sisters back home. And I knew a little bit about it because, as luck would have it, I studied contemporary history at university and I did my dissertation on the end of the British Empire in India. And you can't learn about the end of the British Empire in India without understanding the story of Kashmir and the injustice that has flowed from those dark days at the end of empire, where we carved up the place and left ambiguity for what were then the princely states. They technically had the right to sovereignty themselves. They also had the right to join one or other of the new dominions, and the Kashmiri people were denied any choice whatsoever. As luck, or probably not right now, would have it, I have very significant boundary changes, and I inherit a very substantial Muslim community at the next general election. Largely Kashmiri, Pakistani, and it will be a great privilege, inshallah, to represent them as their member of parliament. Because I feel so strongly about this issue. It is one of human rights. It is one of the longest running, along with Israel-Palestine, it is one of the longest running disputes. And like Israel-Palestine, it has partition at its heart, as being one of the root causes of the situation that we find now. Working with Jess and all the other parliamentarians who are involved on the Kashmir issue, I think that at Labour conference it went largely unnoticed, but there is, I think, some glimmer of hope for the next Labour government in the document that was approved by Labour conference for our National Policy Forum that will form the next manifesto. There is a piece on Kashmir, and it covers three aspects, and I think they are the three most important aspects. One is that United Nations resolutions on Kashmir should be adhered to. The other is that there can be no decision about Kashmir without the Kashmiri people at the heart. It isn't just for India, it isn't just for Pakistan, it is for the Kashmiri people as well. And the third is that there should be investigations into alleged human rights abuses. Those three things, I think, are really important on an individual basis. Put together, I think that it gives a good starting point for the next Labour government to use its authority in the world stage, whether that's at the United Nations, in the Commonwealth, or in other international fora, to try and tell the story of the Kashmiri people time and time again until we get justice for the Kashmiri people. Now, I was lucky enough to be there about a month ago. I was part of a small delegation that went to Azad Jammu and Kashmir and was able to meet with the President, was able to meet with Michelle Malik, and was able to meet with ordinary Kashmiris
including Kashmiri displaced people. I won't call them refugees. You can't be a refugee in your own country, but they are displaced people. And some of them have been displaced for a very, very long time. And it's humbling to be in Kashmir, to see the injustice on the ground, but also to see the beauty of the place. You know, I always say it, and I don't say it for claps, although it often gets me a clap. If I were able to pinpoint a place in the world that could be the Garden of Eden, it would surely be Kashmir.
I was saying earlier, my constituents were like, the most beautiful place on earth.
And just it really is. And I thought, you know, have I oversold this to other people who were on the delegation for the first time? Because I'm telling them, oh, when you get to Muzaffarabad, it's just absolutely stunning because you've got the remembers, you know, it might not be as stunning as I've kind of built up this picture in my head. And the first thing that one of the, she was a Labour councillor from Yorkshire, and she said to me, she said, you know, Andrew, from your description, I built this picture in my head. And as we were driving into Muzaffarabad, I said, that's it. So it must have been right.
In this person, the Imam from Muzaffarabad,
and it is one of the how the world could come to Kashmir and see the beauty for themselves. I think it would be one of the top 10 tourist spots in the world, and the prosperity that that would bring to the Kashmiri people as well, with the international community coming there for the right reasons rather than as UN observers or peacemakers or parliamentarians wanting to fact find. But I'll come back to the human rights issue because I actually met in the camp for displaced people 2 Christian women. And I'm a Christian, I am of faith, and I was talking to them about the fact that Christianity in India and Pakistan is ancient. It goes back to St. Thomas being sent out after, almost immediately after the crucifixion and the resurrection, to go and spread the gospel. And he came to India and set up churches there. So the churches in Pakistan are 2,000 years old. The Christian community in Pakistan is 2,000 years old. And we were talking about the humanity of what has gone on in Kashmir for the past 76 years. And I said, what brought me to this issue was human rights. And my politics and my faith are intertwined. I can't separate them because, as Easter teaches us, I am my brother's keeper. You do not cross the road when somebody is in need to avoid them. And that an attack on your neighbour is like an attack on you yourself. Those are my values, and that's why I will always stand with you, whether it is on Kashmir, or whether it is on the Rohingya, or whether it is on the awful stuff that is going on in Xinjiang, or whether it is what is happening as we speak in Gaza. There has to be justice, and you don't pick and choose your human rights. You don't pick and choose the humans that deserve human rights. They are human rights. They are universal. They belong to each and every one of us on this planet. And I will always defend your human rights wherever we need to. Thank you.
And now we have Debbie, who is, so we've got Labour Friends of Kashmir, and now the chair of the Kashmir APPG, or Parliamentary Group, who is Debbie, who was referred to earlier when I was like, I'm going to go, I'm going to get in, and everyone was like, no, they kicked Debbie out and they wouldn't let her in to go and say things, but I'm going to try again, Debbie.
Well, thank you so much for organising today, and to Jess for hosting it. It's so important that we do have the opportunity to meet with our constituents. I have a
my constituency has 20% Kashmiri heritage population, and it's so important to them that I was a voice in terms of the issue that was so marginalised in the past. I know that we have votes very shortly, so I'm going to vote to agree. First of all, to agree with so much of what my dear friend Andrew Gwynn has said, my dear friend and neighbour Andrew has said about this. It should reassure people in terms of the future Labour government would, as it has in the past, in previous manifesto, have the rights of Kashmiris and their self-determination very clearly enunciated within our manifesto. I'm reassured by that. The other thing in terms of the importance of human rights for all, as Andrew said, you don't pick and choose. This is a family standard. It is about a rules-based system the world has agreed to in the past, and for our future, for all of our futures, our children's and grandchildren's futures, it is an essential part of that. I will be very, very brief because I've got I've got four minutes before I have to actually.
You can.
But just to let you know, I met earlier on today with Lord Ahmed, who's the minister responsible for South Asia, but also the Middle East, and also the United Nations. And I was an opportunity that had been afforded to the APCG. Unfortunately, I was the only one because the meeting time had changed on a number of different occasions who was able to attend. But I was able to ask some very poignant and pertinent questions, for example, around Yasser Malik, and in terms of the concerns around the NIA's case that he should be subject to the death penalty. I've made strong representations that as a country who advocates that not just as a country we shouldn't support the death penalty, it's obviously of our statute, but we should also, with our allies, be ensuring that that they're very clear in terms of what this means as well. I also have confirmed, you may not know, but in the G20 that was held in India early this year, in May, there were delegations from the British government. I had made representations on behalf of the APPG, putting our real concerns about this. We didn't believe there should be any delegation, any representation from the British government. And he confirmed that there were no ministers. So there were officials, but there were ministers at Srinagar. Obviously, in the context of the revocation of Articles 3 and G35A, this is a real issue for us. But that confirmed that no ministers had attended, but there had been officials there. I also asked him in terms of what back channels discussions there may be between India and Pakistan around that. And because if we're going to move forward, and that's why I agreed to become chair, I don't want to just, it's really important to have meetings like this, but I want to move things on towards what everybody here wants, which is around self-determination for Kashmiri people, with the Kashmiri people at the heart of that. But this is, it's really important that we make steps towards that. So it is something that I'm pushing for, and we will continue to push for. And I'm ever so sorry, but I'm going to have to go and vote as well. I'll try and come back a bit. You're going to finish now.
Just going to read this resolution with 2 minutes.
Can I take my copy of the
Yes.
resolution? Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just want to be the participating in this conference. I'm going to read this resolution. At least it should be on the video. I'm going to skip a few things with them. Resolution taken by the Kashmir UK, the participant expressed their solidarity with the Kashmiri people suffering unprecedented abuse of human rights. The participant noted with heavy heart the grave human rights situation in IOJK, especially after August 2019, when India renounced the UN Democratic Dispute Authority and is engaged in occupying military-backed settler colonialism. India, through the might of its 1 million occupying military force, has imposed graveyard silence in IOJK. The participant particularly noted with heavy concerns the ongoing settler colonialism by Indian, under which more than 3 million Indian citizens, mostly non-Muslim, are being settled in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir to artificially change demography of the UN designated disputed region, which is blatant violation of Geneva Convention. The inaction by international community on two reports by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights released in 2018 and 2019 has given India a free hand to commit crimes against humanity and war crimes in Kashmir. The participants discussed in detail in the plight of the Kashmiri Harvidos. Harvidos is a specific term used to describe those Kashmiri women whose husbands were illegally abducted by the Indian occupying forces, and there are no whereabouts of these people. There are documented cases of over 800,000 such Kashmiri who were illegally abducted and forcibly disappeared by the Indian forces. Besides oppression, these women are undergoing social crisis because of various issues. The participant call on international women rights defenders to speak for Kashmiri widows and seek return of their loved ones who are illegally detention who are in illegal detention of occupying Indian forces in IOJK. This conference expressed serious concern over illegal and fraud cases against Kashmiri political and pro-freedom leaders and activists. While India has put their lives at risk in jail, the apartheid regime installed in Indian occupied Kashmir by India has gone after personal properties of the Hindu conquest leaders and activists. So far, no Indian court could prove a single case against them. In spite of difficult circumstances and threat to their lives, the Kashmiri journalists have been playing a great role in exposing the continued atrocities, repression, and human rights violations with impunity. But their space has now been squeezed, and anyone who speaks and writes truth is being jailed and harassed. The roundtable participants urged the British lawmakers to raise their forceful voice for bringing to an end all cycles of violence in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as a non-resolution of dispute means failure of international system, as such as the UN. A resolution to this effect should be adopted in the House of Commons so that the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir suffering uncertainty, hazards of the conflict, and organized oppression have a UN supervised vote for the right to self-determination. The participants resolved that a constructive dialogue between all parties of dispute, Kashmiris, Indian, and Pakistani together can be a welcome beginning for solving the 7-decade-long dispute. They extend their support to request UN Human Rights Commissioner to send a fact-finding mission and to assess the situation in Indian occupied Kashmir, but they're not giving access to the UN fact-finding mission. This is the big dilemma of this. The denial of permission of any fact-finding group by India is a blatant violation of universal fundamental rights and slap on international covenants. It must be condemned. The participants demanded that Kashmiri political prisoners are released forthwith and bodies of this assembly wishes to express its deep gratitude and thanks all wishes who are on the right side of the people of Kashmir and support the right of
Sorry, democracy really gets in the way.
We demand the release of all political prisoners, Yassin Malik, Musarat Alam, Asian Drabi, Famida Sufi, Shabir Shah, Naeem Khan, Qasim Paktu, another last page. Okay. British government must persuade the government of India to release all political prisoners unconditionally, including Sarat Alam, Muhammad Yassin Malik, Shabir Ahmed Shah, Saida Asian Drabi, Hamida Sufi, Nahida Nasreen, Kuram Parvez, Ayaz Akbar, Kir Saifullah Zafar, Muzaffar Akbar, Naeem Khan, and others. Thank you very much. Do you agree with this resolution? And I want to apologize from few people. Sadiq Khan is the chairman of mosque, and Sister I mean, she's very vocal on the issue, because we're running late, they got.
I apologise, I am going to have to go again and vote it again in a minute. This is 3 votes, and this is about banning people from boycotting, and so obviously we are in the Labour Party, we are against this, so it's very important that I vote on this.
That's how we vote, we also vote, is it for or against?
No, the Labour Party are voting, well, actually, it's a very complicated parliamentary thing, in that this is the report stage, so we're voting on a number of amendments, but at third reading of it, unless they take our amendments, they will vote against it.
I introduced this guy, he crossed our Monday apart from the Wakefield, they come all the way from Wakefield, but he didn't have a chance to speak.
No, it's sorry.
You know,
This is right here, everybody else says, really good.
Okay. What you are issuing me?
I just want, I will do a bit of media, but I just want to say thank you very, very much. I can't tell you, I was running the Tamworth by-election for the last 6 weeks, so I've really been in my community. And as has already been expressed in this room a number of times, how difficult things have been, both within the Labour Party, for some of it, its own fault, but also, like, you know, it's horrifying, and I've wept more this week than I have in politics generally. It has been a total pleasure to feel the hand of friendship from the people in this room, and the solidarity from the people in this room. So thank you. This has literally been the best thing I'll do all day.
Yeah, it's so yeah, basically your life, like Tamkin Riaz, just to let you know, they've actually heard what you just said. I was going to end the live stream. We'll do another one if you want. Yeah, so take care for now. Assalamu alaikum.